20 years
Move better.
ago. Next year we'll have a holographic speaker.
Just transport you here.
I'll just project a 3D hologram of myself and
CDs from Nuts and Bolts and Servo Magazine they donated to us also. Okay, with that. So this is the 18th GPSL. You see that we've been in Kansas most of the time, then Colorado. So EOSS has hosted us. Nebraska was Mark Connor. And then, of course, Missouri twice. First was with Liberty. That's with Keith Kaiser's group. Civil Air Patrol, I think, is what he's connected with. And then, of course, Moscow Mills did that one also. 2 years ago, went to Texas for the first time. This year, you're in Nampa, Idaho. Okay, in the future, we have 4 of them planned so far. So we're looking at Pella, Iowa next year, Omaha, Nebraska, that'll be Mark Connor. And then Bill Brown's going to do Spaceport, Indiana, and Huntsville, Alabama the following 2 years after that. So I am looking for 2023 if anybody wants to think 5 years in the future to host us. Okay, so today's schedule, you should have this handout. So we're in introductions right now. We'll do Bill Brown here just in a few moments, and he'll speak. Then Jim, Tom, Jeff. Lunch will be provided. My wife will be picking up lunch a little before about 11 o'clock, so she'll bring lunch in. We'll have Pete talk, I'll talk, and then Michael will be here to talk. We figured about an hour or so for flight predictions and selection of the launch site. I've got some information from Mark Connor, so I'll share that with you also. Dinner tonight, 6 o'clock, Cafe Olay. This is in Boise, so it'll take about a half hour or so to drive from Nampa to there. It's at the mall. There's 2 Cafe Olays. The first one is in Meridian on Eagle. We're not doing that one. We'll be doing the one next to the mall in Boise. You have a paper on your repeater with repeater frequencies that you can use, and that's on the back of the handout you got. This should get us good coverage. I don't think we need to worry about Weezer since we're not going anywhere north, it looks like. But the paper handout I gave you on the back has these repeater frequencies. All of them have a PL tone of 100. Okay, also I want to thank my statistically significant other, Rachel, has helped me out with this to make this work. I really appreciate her help. Keep all the loose ends and all that deal. Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. And also we give thank you first off to Dr. Eater. They donated 4 tanks of gas. So that lowered the cost of gas for us. Also, Voice of Idaho is going to haul gas for us. They will leave at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, which means we don't want to leave until about 6:30 because it takes them about half an hour to get where we are. If you leave earlier than 6:30, what you could do, you could get set up early. If you leave at 6, you'll be about half an hour or so ahead of dawn hauling the gas. This is kind of my motto for this year's GPSL, straight out of airspace. And finally, we will see you all next year in Pella, Iowa. With that, I think we're ready for Bill Brown to get started. Unless there's any questions or comments or anything like that.
Well, can you give us a quick heads up where the launch site is?
The launch site, we'll determine that at 4 o'clock. Between 3 and 4, we'll pick up the launch site. Right now, it looks like we're looking at maybe Jordan Valley in Oregon, which I think is about an hour-and-a-half drive. But we'll look at that. We'll make those predictions today. That's what it looks like we're looking at. The flight path looks like it's going to go primarily east. It won't be that much going north, it looks like. So we'll need to go further east. If we go much further east, there is a launch site for boats called Rome Launch Site, which would be a great name, but I think that's too far east for us, or too far west for us. So I think we're looking at Jordan Valley, which is another half an hour or so south of what I was hoping for at the Idaho-Oregon border. I think we'll find more open launch space in Jordan Valley than we would at the border. Any other comments, questions? Okay, with that, let's see if we can get Bill Brown on. Okay, got Bill there, and let's see. What we need to do is
Bottom left of YouTube.
bottom left of YouTube.
Unmute.
Okay, bottom left. I don't see.
Well, hop into the picture. There's a little speaker right there. The line through.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay, so I think.
Testing 1, 2, 3. And the audio?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Turn it down.
There we go. Okay, Paul. Well, welcome everybody, and I wish I could be there in person, but we'll see you next GPSL. I also wanted to add, Paul, I'm going to donate a sky tracker as a prize, so add that to your prize list.
Yeah. I'm right to look sky tracker on.
So if you're ready, I'll go ahead and bring up the slides, and we'll start talking through them, and I'll just tell you when to advance them.
Hang on.
And I'll watch on the USS stream to see how it's progressing.
Oh, my cell phone is not going to
Pause. So where we can.
Okay. Looks like a pretty good turnout today, and looks like you're gonna have fabulous weather. It's 95 degrees here, about 100% humidity in Alabama, so I'm liking that weather you're having there. And, oh, there you go. And two of these slides, Paul, have a video on them, and you should just, when we get to them, you just hit the down arrow, should play it.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay, as you may know from 2015, this is a photo taken of my balloon, Paul balloons, and a group from Missouri from 200 feet away. I know some of you have seen this picture, but for those who haven't, that was 200 feet away. The balloons tracked each other perfectly for the entire flight. And if the government had tried to pull this off, it would take a year and a half, $1 million, and they'd probably fail. So that's the advantage of amateur radio high altitude balloons. Next slide. Seeing if there's a delay here. You went pretty fast, Paul. Okay, I know a number of you were at the GPSL 2016 at Pecan Plantation, Texas, and this was our very first Pico balloon race that we did with Mylar party balloons. And next slide. You might as well just stay up there, Paul. There you go. Now that's, as you all know, that's 7 balloons in the air with latex. Next slide. But this time we tried 3 different types of Pico balloons. These are 36-inch Mylar party balloons from Qualitex. And my balloon was on APRS. AB5SS, he had one on APRS as well. And then Mike, 82EAT, had a dual party balloon. They were taped on top of each other with Pyvex tape. That seemed to be the best way of doing 2 balloons. If you try and put them right next to each other, they tend to bang into each other in bursts. So a little piece of Pyvex tape attaches the 2 balloons on top of each other. And they usually put a safety line of about 5 feet of fishing line to, in case the 5X tape fails. And his was running a Whisper 20-meter balloon transmitter. So if you go to the next slide, we'll show you some of the results from that. This is the Sky Tracker for those of you who haven't seen one. And Jim, KC0RPS, has one that they're going to fly either later, I believe later today. And that'll be a Whisper 20-meter balloon that they're going to fly. It's totally solar powered, weighs about 12 grams. And this one uses guitar string for the antenna elements because it's a 2-meter, this is a 2-meter APRS version. The HF version uses fishing line and magnet wire, and it's 17 feet on each end. So that's a lot of, it's a little trickier to fly. So as we'll find out later today when USS flies theirs. Next slide. This is the this is the results from GPSL 2016's race. The big bullseye with all the multiple circles, that was all the latex balloons. And then at the border of Texas, you'll see AB5SS. And way down in southwestern portion of Mexico there, that was WB8MSJ, which is why my dad's call sign for Father's Day. And he ended up winning the race on that particular one. Next slide. And as you see, can we go to the next slide? Let's see. Oh yeah, it flew for 26,000 feet for 6.5 days and made it all the way to Southern California before splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico, the Baja Gulf there. So that was our first Pico balloon race, and we had a lot of fun. So we decided to do it again at the next GPSL. Next slide. And as you all remember, those of you who were in attendance, we were in Hutchinson, Kansas, and we had a perfect condition and flew a lot of latex balloons, but we also flew 3 Pico party balloons again. Next slide. On the left, you'll see one of my single 36-inch balloons, and you'll see it's floating neutrally buoyant. I put a little weight on it, which equals the payload weight plus 3 grams. 3 grams free lift is the ideal we found for these 36-inch Mylar foil party balloons. And they will go up to about 30,000 feet or so, and they will float perfectly at that altitude. If you put in, I put as much as 4 grams in and been successful. 2 to 2.5, you may not achieve the super pressure, but 3 grams seems to work just about every time. On the right, that's Mike, KD2EAT, and he taped 2 balloons together, and he was flying 20-meter Whisper once again. So I flew 2 APRS single Mylar balloons, and he flew a double Mylar with 20-meter Whisper. And if you can see, I don't know if you can see his T-shirt, but I just love that. I love that motto. So we had a great time. We were using hydrogen, by the way, in both flights. Next slide. So the balloons actually flew west, and they went all the way up to the Pacific Ocean and went right up the west coast, paralleling the west coast of the United States, looped back over Oregon and Idaho, and 12 days later went back directly over the launch site in Hutchinson, Kansas. Then Mike went all the way to Siberia, and he won the race. But we ended up, one of the balloons stayed up 22 days. And these were running, that was with a single balloon running about 30,000 feet. The advantage of using 2 balloons is they'll fly about 3,000 to 4,000 feet higher, which gets you above the potential for thunderstorms. It greatly helps to go a little bit higher. 30,000 feet, you're at a fair risk of hitting a thunderstorm eventually. But you get about 35 to 40,000 feet, you're a pretty good chance of avoiding thunderstorms. Next slide. Now the neat thing about the race is 2 days later, after they crossed Hutchinson, Kansas, WB4ELK-4, which is Bev's call sign, it decided to come and visit our home. Now keep in mind, it's been flying for 14 days, launched from Kansas, went to the Pacific Ocean and back, 5,500 miles later, It flew directly over my work at the Redstone Arsenal and my house in Huntsville, right over it. I was actually able to see the balloon flashing in the sun as it was flying over at 30,000 feet. I had a big crowd from work out in the parking lot staring up at the sky, and it caused a lot of interest. But several of us could see it flashing periodically as it flew over. That balloon went on to splash down just north of Nova Scotia after 22 days. So we had a lot of fun with that race. Next slide. Talk to you about a few different things we've been doing this past year. The Boy Scout National Jamboree was in the Bechtel Preserve in West Virginia this year, and they hold those every 4 years. And this time they flew 2 Pico balloons and live streamed the launch on the K2PSA website. And Keith Kaiser, WA0TJT, was instrumental in organizing this effort. And they had a blast. The scouts could follow it on their smartphone throughout the flight. 10 days later, it ended up over the Dominican Republic. Hang on a minute. So, anyways, they had a great flight out of it, and they really enjoyed following that. Next slide. How many of you saw the eclipse of 2017? And now, how many of you flew a balloon during that? I see a hand raised there. There were hundreds of balloons. At least 100 of them were flying with amateur radio. We went to Clarksville, Tennessee. These are images captured by my brother with his camera. Next slide. On the left, you'll see the actual path of totality for the eclipse. On the right is a map showing all the balloons that were flying during that time, and you can see the actual path of totality on the balloon tracks. Now, from our location in Clarksville, we had probably 20 balloons flying at once. 144.39 was a complete solid carrier, but fortunately, my Skytrackers, we flew 3 Skytrackers and party balloons. They also transmit on 144.34, and we were able to give reports through all that mess. Next slide. So we lined up in a big field near KF4 ZTI's location. That's Greg Mann. He was kind enough to put 12 of us up in RVs and campers and tents in his yard because he was right on the center line for the eclipse. And we watched these about 45 minutes before totality to see how the temperature would be affected and also measure the precise level of solar illumination when the solar panels are quit. So it was kind of unique because everybody else was flying latex balloons with cameras. We decided to do something a little different this time. Next slide. So we launched, and one of the balloons caught a downdraft and nearly hit the power lines, but they all 3 finally made it. Next slide. They went through the path of totality, and we hit it dead on. They were right in the middle of the path, about 30,000 feet up once they hit float. And then they went on and stayed up 4 days. And the unique thing is, I must have gotten the lift just perfect between all 3 balloons because they tracked each other within 20 miles throughout the entire 4-day flight. You can see the 3 balloons just right next to each other there out of the Atlantic. They ended up disappearing off the coast of Newfoundland and must have hit a storm south of Greenland because they were not heard from after that point. But we just had a fun time. Now, I'm sure Paul will show you some amazing pictures he took on one of his balloons during the eclipse. You can actually see the entire shadow on the Earth from the stratosphere. Next slide. Now, there's a competition called the Global Space Balloon Challenge, and Pete Sias is going to talk later about their efforts. There's an educational category and a best payload design category, and we entered in the educational category. And our goal was, I teamed up with the 5th grade STEM class at Mill Creek Elementary in Madison, Alabama, and the teacher is a ham, KJ4 CR Victor, Quebec, and her name is Jackie, and she's done a couple of high altitude balloon latex flights, so we decided to team up and try and send them around the world to be the first elementary school to circumnavigate the globe. Next slide. So there they are. We went out just outside the school. It's a beautiful, cloudless day. And we're using an SBS 13 balloon from Scientific Balloon Solutions. That's Ron, K6 RTT, and his son Lee. And they sell these balloons through that website. And below it, you can see the Sky Tracker. We're flying an APRS 2-meter type Sky Tracker. So the kids had a blast, and you'll see here in the next slide, hopefully the video will play. Okay, there's the liftoff. And either click on Paul or hit the one of the down arrow, maybe it'll play. Yeah. Ah, geez. I don't know why I did that.
Chicken heads.
I guess you all have to turn sideways to watch that one. I don't know why I did that. Okay, well, anyways, they had a blast. Okay, and then the next slide, you'll see the path. Unfortunately, we likely filled it a little too much, and the SPS 13s are very tricky as to how much free lift you put in. If you put too much in, they're going to spring a leak. So you have to get it just right. And lately the advice is about 6 grams of free lift. So we were probably around 7.5. And once it hit about 42,000 feet, it sprang a leak. Now, since failure is not an option for these students, we had to change our mission goal from circumnavigating the world to same-day balloon mail. Because it turned out that the landing site prediction was right next to one of our ACE balloon trackers. He's chased our balloons for 25 years, Ralph Fowler, and for NQ in Kennesaw, Georgia. And the prediction showed it would land just a couple miles from his house. So we told the students, you've got Amazon with their same-day drone deliveries. Why not try a same-day balloon mail? So the kids got really excited and about our new goal. And of course, we landed 2 miles from Ralph's house, and he went out and found it within a few hours, hanging 50 feet up in a tree. Next slide. Turned out the owner of the house was the local operator of the fire truck. And so he brought out the tanker truck, and this is the way to recover a balloon. This is probably end up sideways as well, but go ahead and play that video, Paul.
Cheaters. Beautiful.
Now, that's what we all need for balloon recovery from balloon-eating trees. Next slide. So that worked pretty well. I wonder how much a surplus tanker truck would be with a big lift. We could definitely use it around here because just about every flight we do ends up in a balloon-eating tree. Next slide. So Ralph got delivery of his payload did work, but it'll be practical once we develop Taylor's 6 and poisonous balloon eating tree. Next slide. Now, we had a fun time at the Dayton Convention this year, but once again, it was filled with thunderstorms and rain, which is definitely not a good environment when you're launching a small Pico balloon with 3 grams of lift. Just a small rain shower can knock it out of the sky. But we found a little break between thunderstorms. There's a little patch of blue, so we decided to, at least, we were going to do a race with 3 balloons, but we decided just to fly one of them because we had a big crowd. And we figured it'd get snagged on something, but, or hit a building, but we were going to try it. So this is lift off. On the left, you see Bev Teeter, WD4ELK, and her friend launching the balloon. And one of my friends who saw this image said, "What, they had steak on a stick?" So on the right, that's Joe, NAQOD, and he organized the helium and the place to launch for the Dayton Convention. So he was very instrumental in making this all happen at the Dayton Convention. This is actually the 10th time we've launched a balloon for the Dayton Convention. Next slide. The balloon took off. We were aiming for that little patch of blue, but there was quite a bit of wind too. It was about 12 to 15 knots, which once again is way outside what you would want to do launching a Pico balloon with 3 grams of lift. So just barely cleared Marconi Hall. Actually, I think it drug along the roof a little bit. And then we thought, finally, we made it past the building, we're home free. Next slide. We couldn't have done this if we had tried. That was the hex beam that the Hamvention HF station was using. It was 100 feet up, acted just like a spider web for balloons. And it snagged on that thing and sat there for 30 minutes. They rotated it around. It just kept getting worse. And then they finally started to lower it, and it came off the antenna. Then it hit a power line. And then it sat there for about a minute, finally freed itself, and finally took off. 1 hour later, a thunderstorm hit it and knocked it down to within 1,000 feet of the ground. And then it somehow made it past the thunderstorm and started up again. So how far do you think that balloon traveled? And how long do you think it stayed up after all that abuse? The answer? Next slide. It stayed aloft for 11 days across the Atlantic. It was heard in the Azores and the Canary Islands, went across North Africa, and was last heard in the Black Sea just north of Turkey after an 11-day flight, 1/3 of the way around the world. So that balloon took a licking and kept on ticking. So we plan to do this again next year for the Hamvention and probably fly 3 of them and have a race. So next slide. And the next slide after that. Okay, with that, Paul, you can go back to the live video stream and I'll take any questions. Hope I don't get any feedback here. So far I can hear it. to relay questions, I may not be able to hear people.
Okay, I got a question. What about the problem with the Mylar balloons seem to be getting thinner? Paul, you want to relay it?
Let me see if I can meet the mic.
Relay the question to him? I think also been on the phone, Paul.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay, Bill, the question is, the Mylar balloons seem to be getting thinner from the manufacturer?
Try it again, Jim.
Okay, Bill.
Okay, repeat that question. I finally figured out how to mute thing so it doesn't get that nasty feedback.
There we
So
go.
try it again, Jim.
Seems to be the Mylar balloons might be getting thinner from the manufacturer.
Yes, that's a good question. I learned at the Dayton Innovation from Dave, PE3KCL, who has been flying a number of not latex, the Mylar balloons, that there is a new batch of Qualitex balloons. And the Qualitex have been the ones that work the best. If you just walk into a party store and one of the 36-inch Mylar balloon, it may not work. But the Qualitex had enough layers with built out of the right material that the UK High Altitude Society determined that was the best balloon to use at the time. So there's a 2016 date code, which has been working great, but the new batch weighs about 5 grams lighter. And according to Dave, they're harder to achieve a float with. Although they would go higher because they weigh 5 grams lighter. So they've done something to the quality of their balloons that may be a little difficult to achieve float like we've done in the past. I have a batch of the older balloons, which I sent to EOSS. Should arrive today, I hope. So, and I have not personally tried these new balloons. I have about 20 or 30 of the new ones. So I'm going to try a test flight with one and see how it works. According to Dave, however, there is a new clear Mylar balloon. It's basically the same kind of balloon without the metallized coating that some people have gotten to stay up a month to 50 days with hydrogen. And they're even cheaper than the Mylar balloons, the Qualitex. The Qualitex are about $3 a piece, and these new ones are about $2 a piece from China. And I just got them in, so I'll be testing them in the next week or so. So, next question.
So, Bill, from the time you take your board out, expose the solar panels to the sun, how long until the super cap is fully charged?
Okay, there's a question about the solar panels. I hope I heard it right, but basically, I'm using a power film solar flexible panels. Now, they aren't the most efficient panels. The reason I use them is because I go and do a lot of outreach into schools, and the kids love to play with the payload and touch the solar panels. And if you had a monocrystalline cell, they are about the strength of sand. If you touch one, they're just going to break right in half. And we can't afford to put backing underneath of them to support them because that's a weight penalty, and everything has got to be as light as possible. So this whole payload, to be successful, you have to be under 15 grams and better, and lighter. So basically, I use the flexible power film solar panels. They're also a high level cell, so they put out about 5 volts at 100 milliamps. Well, the two of them do. They're about 50 milliamps each panel, so I put them in parallel. But a monocrystalline cell, if you're just doing it yourself, you can probably get more efficient. But with the cells I'm using right now, I can operate until about an hour and a half before sunset and start up again an hour and a half after sunrise. Another thing to point out is on APRS, it's frequency agile. So the board has a geofencing algorithm that tells me where I am in the world and switches to that local APRS frequency wherever it happens to be. And there's about a dozen different APRS frequencies in the north and south hemisphere. There's 5 different frequencies, 5 or 6 different frequencies in the northern hemisphere I have to be aware of. So is that to prevent World War III so I don't transmit over North Korea? Next one.
More questions?
We'll have a bunch of questions after our launch this afternoon.
Yes, indeed. Are you planning to live stream that event?
I don't know.
We could try, but I'd need a
We'll have to see if we've got connectivity.
Wi-Fi connection.
Okay.
And it's great to see everybody. Hello, Pete and Ruby in the back. Sorry I couldn't make it, but I'm glad you made it with the schoolie. And for those of you who have not seen Pete's converted school bus, it's an amazing portable ham radio station. So, anyways, if there's any more questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Okay, we're about 10 minutes ahead, but next is going to be Jim, who's talking on the first Pico balloon launch. I think we have your PowerPoint up here ready to go.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I think we have your PowerPoint. We got your PowerPoint.
Yes, right.
Okay, good. Okay, so.
Yeah. Okay. Can I flip it or do?
So this will do your things.
Okay.
Sit. Sure.
Are you going to get in there in her accessible?
Nothing on the screen.
Chat.
Testing one.
So you're going to keep talking to Bill?
How's that?
I'm transmitting.
This advances it. Okay. A lot of this is similar to the stuff Bill was talking about, but let me come at it from a slightly different angle. Interspace Sciences thought it would be really neat to fly one of these balloons. You know, we've flown big latex balloons and a few plastic balloons over our career, but we thought this would be really cool, so give it a try. And it turns out it's got all sorts of complications, of course, associated with it. So the title of my talk is Preparations for Our First Pico Balloon Launch, or Everything I Learned from My Father About Pico Balloons. So Bill's been the one that we've gotten all of our information from. There are some other people that are flying Pico balloons and building Pico beacons. Bill's got that thing down. The little board weighs, with the solar panel, weighs 12 grams. And then put 3 grams of antenna on it. 14.67 is what our payload weighed in last night. Grams. What is it, 35 grams in an ounce? Like that, so it's pretty small. And what really piqued my interest about this thing is going around the world. Here's an example. I think this is Bill's, is that a pointer? Oh, the top there, yeah. Bill, I think this is his, world record. I think he says he's been around the world 6.5 times with one of these balloons. Now, actually, if you want to go long-term around the world, you need to use the SBS, the clear plastic balloon, rather than the Mylar balloons. The difference in cost is the clear plastic balloon is $129, and the Mylar balloons are $3 each. But this is what piqued my interest. And last year at Hutch, I didn't attend